by. Repeat. Counter UAV. Counter UAV is up.
So this was part of my experience going back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Hey everyone, so 2 months ago the servers for all those old Call of Duty games on the Xbox 360 were fixed and a huge influx of players went back to those classic games. So now, 2 months down the line, I figured I would check and see if those player counts and servers are still holding up. And honestly, I had some extremely varying experiences. So let's check it out together. First off, no, I didn't test every Call of Duty that released on the Xbox 360. I picked 4 of them that I feel gave me a decent range of player bases. And just to be clear, I did use an actual Xbox 360 with a wired internet connection. I know the games are available on the newer consoles with backwards compatibility, but for the sake of the video, I wanted to make sure I was using original hardware. All games were tested in the middle of September of 2023, and my experiences with them ranged quite a bit, from perfectly playable to complete major issues. So let's check out how things went with Black Ops 1. Now, Black Ops 1 was a pretty good experience. There was over 14,000 players and I had no issues finding a game. However, that will depend on the game mode. I just played Team Deathmatch for all of these as that's what most people care about, as over 10,000 players were in that game mode alone. I know in the comments of my last Call of Duty video, people were a little concerned about progress not saving, but I personally had no issues, and this is my same profile that I used in that last video, and I still have the level progression that I made from last time. As for the actual gameplay, it worked perfectly fine. I never really noticed any other players clipping forward or anything of that nature. It still had some old Call of Duty jank and a couple of moments of stuttering, but nothing severe. I also had no issues with input lag in Black Ops 1 or any of the games I tested for that matter, as long as I was using the Xbox 360. Personally, I have had issues with lag using the backwards compatibility on the Xbox Series X, so I just make sure to stick with the Xbox 360 if I'm going to play these older games. But when it comes down to it, Black Ops 1 was completely playable and worked quite well if it's your go-to Call of Duty game. After that, I decided to check out World at War, and this had a pretty big difference as there were under 500 players total online according to the in-game data. So be warned, finding a full match in this might be extremely difficult. The first game I was loaded into only had about 4 players in it, and it was a game already in progress that I assume others had left. And slowly, more people started joining until we had roughly a full game. As for the gameplay, it was smooth. I had no issues playing the game, no stuttering, no crashes, no glitches or anything. So in terms of that, it was a really good experience. For me personally though, it's one of the Call of Duties that I've played the least in my life, so I have basically no nostalgia for it, and I barely recognize some of the maps. So with that being said, and the difficulty in finding full games, I don't think I'm going to be playing this one too much, but if you want to check it out and you're willing to wait for a full game, it is perfectly playable. Moving from World at War to the Modern Warfare games, I decided to check out Modern Warfare 2, and this one had a weird issue to start. Right away, there was no in-game player count data. It said 0 players online throughout the entire game, which I thought was a little odd and inaccurate, so I decided to try jumping into a game anyways and see what happens, and well, it found a game, which made sense to me because I feel like I would have heard if Modern Warfare 2 actually wasn't fixed. But then another issue arose. I picked Team Deathmatch, and throughout all the loading screens and even the pause screen in-game, it said Team Deathmatch. But it put me into a different game mode. It put me into a game of what I assume was Search and Destroy, even though it was still saying Team Deathmatch everywhere. So I decided to leave and try another mode, this time trying Domination, and yet, even while saying Domination at the top, it was saying the chosen map was a Search and Destroy map. This time, I didn't even let it load into the game, I just left and tried again. Finally, everything seemed to be working clearly in terms of finding matches in the game mode I actually selected, but the player count never actually started working for me. But what matters is actually playing the game when it loaded properly for me, and well, again, it was working just fine. No major issues with lag, glitches, or anything like that, just good old online Call of Duty, which always has a little bit of jank, but nothing game breaking. So if you want to play Modern Warfare 2, you can. However, just be aware there clearly is some sort of menu issue where you're potentially put into the wrong game modes, and since player count data wasn't working, I can't say one way or another how popular this particular game is. I have no idea if there's a lot of players, but personally I have to assume there's a good amount of people online since it is a game that a lot of people talk about being their favorite. But that's just a gut feeling really. In keeping with the Modern Warfare series, I decided to check out my personal favorite Call of Duty from the 360 era, and that's Modern Warfare 3. At first glance, there was nothing weird going on. I signed in and looked at the player count, and there was a ridiculous number of people playing, and it found a game right away. But this match was experiencing a ton of slowdown. I did not edit this clip at all. This is exactly what I experienced on my TV while trying to play. So after one life of barely walking around, I decided to leave and try again. But the next game I loaded into had the exact same issues. It was so choppy I couldn't even control anything properly. So this time, I figured I would leave entirely, restart the console, and try again. And thankfully, it worked. The game I loaded into after restarting worked perfectly fine. At this point, I figured I was just in for a few games of normal Call of Duty to record footage, say everything was okay, and then move on. But it found me a game that actually showed 18 player slots, then went down to the normal 12, then it went back up to 14. In all honesty, I didn't even register what was happening, as I was probably writing down notes from all the footage I had already captured, and loading screens isn't something I usually intensely examine. I didn't notice the numbers fluctuating that much until looking at the footage afterwards, but the game itself started fine, then quickly things started getting weird. This phrase showed up on my screen and basically never left. And that's the moment I knew something was up, so I purposely didn't leave as I wanted to make sure I had footage to show you. Everything was technically playing fine at the beginning, but then I noticed this player on my minimap, so I went to go check it out. Obviously something was up, but seemed harmless enough. Then I noticed players starting to fly in the sky. Then I noticed the speed of the game was being tampered with. This took place for basically the entire game, and while I didn't stay for the full game as it wasn't fun at all to play, and I only stayed to get footage of different things to be able to show you, it got progressively worse as the game went on. Now, my personal real big issue with this is what happened after I left, as I noticed the game had leveled me up to the max level before the prestige. I went from level 25 to level 80 because of this game. I unlocked every gun and attachment because of this game. And while some people might look at that and think that's a really cool thing to happen to them, personally, I'm pretty annoyed at it. This isn't how I want to play the game, and I have zero desire to get banned. I don't want my account to be labeled as an account that was cheating to level up. I have no idea what the ban or suspension process in these older games are like, and I have no desire to find out. But I was leveled up without my knowledge, and it looks like I cheated, which frustrates me to no end. It's actually the type of thing that makes me want to not turn it back on, as I don't want to set off a red flag or something when I sign back in. So while I had a bad experience, obviously with this ridiculously large player count, most people are probably having a good and normal time in the game. But please, be careful, as people are obviously messing with some of these games. It's absolutely possible to have a good time and keep returning to these classic games, as some of them have high player counts, they can run fairly well with minimal lag or choppiness, and sometimes the solution is as simple as a quick restart if you encounter a small issue. But it is possible to run into major issues. It is possible to run into people who are messing with the core of the game. It is possible to have your account actually affected by this, so be careful with spotting weird things like a 12-player game having 14 players in it, and other issues like that. If you notice it, maybe you can leave the lobby before it affects you. Personally, I think it's a great thing that these servers are fixed and that so many people are still playing these older games months after the initial influx of players. I think it's a good thing that people are having a good time while going on these nostalgia trips, but not every game is going to give you the same experience. Whether it's World at War having very few players, to Modern Warfare 3 being an absolute glitch fest at times, just be aware of the signs of something weird taking place in a lobby and have fun, be safe, and don't get yourself banned. Honestly, I am a little nervous that I'll get a ban notice whenever I log back into Modern Warfare 3, and that sucks because it's my personal favorite from the era.